there has been one significant change in the tablet industry I think you should know about. I think most of us can agree that Apple has been at the top of the food chain when it comes to tablets for years now. But this might have just changed. This year, Google released an operating system designed purely for tablets. Due to this major change, could Apple actually have more serious competitors to the iPad? My mission in this video is to give you a simple but elaborate view of this new operating system and then help you to decide whether you should go with an iPad or a tablet running this new OS. Just beware, there's one important thing you should know about this operating system, but we'll get to that later. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm going to give you a straightforward view of this operating system. But to do this, I'm going to have to go over 3 steps explaining this OS. So my goal after this explanation is for the comparison between iPadOS and Android 12L to be much more applicable to your use of a tablet. So let me quickly educate you on this operating system. Just one thing, if you do have a great deal of knowledge on tablets and Android, then bear with me as I get the basics out of the way. I would love to do a complicated analysis of this operating system, but that's for another day. So let's start out with these 3 simple steps. So the first step, or section, whichever one you want to refer to it as, is called UI. Some people like to call it user interface. So you might be wondering what this UI thingy is, or you might not, but either way, let me explain it. So the UI is the appearance of an operating system. So for instance, compare Android 12 to iOS 15. Let's not do 16 yet, but that is coming soon. You can see that there is a major difference in the appearance of the home screen, the appearance of the app icons. That is the UI. If they had the same UI, they would look identical. Now that we have the basics of the meaning of user interface out of the way, I am happy to inform you Android 12L, the iOS competitor operating system I have been referring to, actually has a very pleasant and fresh UI. So partly why I like this user interface is because of a feature called Material U. So if you haven't heard of this new feature, let me explain it to you. So the general idea of Material U is to give apps which support it information so that they can adjust their highlight colors to match your wallpaper. So for instance, most of Google's apps support this feature, but so do some third-party apps as well. But there's 2 other slightly more minor reasons I like the UI of Android 12L. One of them being a little bit controversial. So the first one is Android 12L has much smoother animations than Android 11. So the second change I just mentioned a sec ago that was slightly controversial is actually the lock screen. So the clock on the lock screen for Android 12L is much bigger than Android 11, and some people might like this, which I am one of those people. Some people dislike it, and I also totally understand that, but it really boils down to preference. So ask yourself the question, which do I like more, the Android 11 one or the Android 12 one? So overall, I would say that Android 12L's user interface is just as good as Apple's iPadOS, except in a different way. But if you thought that Android 12L was all sunshine and roses, let me tell you, it's not. So you've seen the day, let me take you through the night. And there's no smartphone flashlights to illuminate the dark. So now we are on to step 2 out of 3 steps. In this section, we are going to refer to as compatibility. Let me explain what I mean by that. So by compatibility, I mean compatibility with software, specifically apps. So every application, no matter if you install it from the Apple App Store or the Google Play Store, needs to some extent be optimized for the device you are installing it on. So I am going to explain this optimization topic I just brought up in a little bit more detail. But to do this, I want you to imagine a Windows or Mac desktop. Now take that computer and I want you to compare the applications from that computer to the applications on your smartphone. For example, let's compare the app that performs as the settings app on Mac and compare it to the settings app on iPhone. Now, as you can see, even though they are from the exact same developer, there is a pretty big difference in both the Mac app and the iPhone app. So now that we have brought smartphones and computers into the equation, it's time to talk about tablets. So a tablet application can't look like a smartphone application or a computer application. It has to be in the middle, which is why it is so important for an app to be optimized specifically for a tablet. And while Apple might have this problem solved, Android, on the other hand, has a little bit of an issue. and we're gonna get into that. So in general, there are not as many apps optimized on the Android side of the spectrum for tablets as on the Apple side. So why is this? There are far more Android devices created in a year than Apple devices. And far more of those Android devices are actually Android smartphones and not tablets. But when we start looking at Apple, there are so many less Apple devices manufactured in a year compared to Android. Because of this, once the developers are done creating apps for the iPhone, they still have enough time to get to the iPad. But on the Android side of the compass, there are so many Android smartphones that by the time they are done making a generic image for all those smartphones, they don't have enough time to make exact particular images for tablets. And that is the problem in most cases. So the tablets get the same generic image as those smartphones, meaning that that app is in general more optimized for a smartphone than it is for a tablet. So in general, when it comes to compatibility, in most cases, Apple wins, just because of that huge problem on the Android side. And also, just so you know, the night is over and we are actually in early morning right now, so this section isn't quite as bad as the last for Android 12L. So now we are in the final step, and because of this, it is time to talk about security. Security against malicious attacks on Android is adequate, but then again, this is a very strong point for Apple. The reason for this is Apple is much more strenuous when it allows secure apps on their marketplace versus the Google Play Store. There have been a couple cases with malicious apps on the Google Play Store in the past, but Google is getting much better at finding these apps and reading them out of their Play Store. So in the future, this might not be as much of an issue, but at least for right now, Apple still does have the lead. So now that you have had a light comparison between Android 12L and Apple's iPadOS, we're gonna go over a couple more things to make this comparison complete. Also, congratulations making it through the 3 steps. So I'm gonna answer and warn you about that question I posed at the beginning of the video. So first of all, how does Android 12L compare to Apple's iPadOS? So I would say overall, it's a good start, but they still have a long way to go, especially with the Google Play Store and getting apps optimized for tablets. But if they can fix that problem, they're gonna be miles closer to where the iPad is today, and definitely could be a serious competitor. But I would say, as for current times, iPadOS still does have the advantage. And as we discussed earlier, this is mainly because of its app compatibility. So Google is releasing a tablet with possibly a later iteration of Android 12L, which could give us a lot of these features we've been wanting and could actually pose as a serious competitor to the Apple iPad. But until then, we just have to look at the facts, and the facts point towards Apple still having the advantage when it comes to tablets, when you compare it to stock Android 12L OS. So remember that thing I warned you about at the beginning of the video? Well, I'm gonna share that with you now because I find it very important to your decision of whether you should go with an Android 12L tablet or an iPad. The information I wanted to share with you is about other manufacturers having very different versions of Android 12L on their tablets, or even possibly just Android 12 with a skin over it. And those devices will have a lot of different features that stock Android 12L won't have, but I wanted something that was applicable to the widest range of tablets, so I decided to go with a generic, pretty much stock Android. So I used Lineage OS 19. Just for reference. I hope this video has been beneficial for you when deciding which tablet you should go for. Hopefully now you have a good view of what each operating system can do and the features it offers. Do bear in mind though, that hardware matters just as much as software. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the video and I wish you the best in finding the right tablet for you. Well, until next time. Cut!